Imagine a world, one of incredible art, CG like you've never seen before, stuff better that's in any film that you've ever witnessed, boundless creativity, all brought to life through the mainstay use of a single program, ZBrush. And you think to yourself, I'm going to get this fucking program, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to be making cool shit in no time, only to learn that this fucking program is bullshit. Its interface is a complete and utter fucking mess. You don't know where anything is. The people that do know how to do it and make tutorials over it just gloss over shit that's really important that can completely fuck up your entire workflow without giving it a second thought. And no one just goes about teaching somebody how to use this program like they know nothing about the world of CG. Well, hopefully I can help you out. This is the complete idiot's guide to ZBrush, assuming you know nothing about the fucking program. So the first thing we're going to get into is, what version of ZBrush are you working on? Because the shit changes all the time. I currently am going to do this tutorial based off ZBrush 4 R7 64-bit. Now, the one thing that a lot of people aren't going to say about ZBrush is what kind of rig you have plays a lot into how far you can go, how big your textures can be, how detailed how dense your model can be, so on and so forth. A lot of people don't really preface that in the beginning. They just kind of sculpt away and all their shit looks amazing. But that's generally not the case. If your computer is not up to snuff, then you cannot get a 100 million polygon character rocking on this thing. And if you can, you wouldn't be able to export the maps off it because the shit would crash constantly. So I'll get into my specs in a different video. Maybe I'll link it in here if I haven't made already. But for starters, like, this is going to be what happens when you first boot the program up from scratch. All right, so here we go. ZBrush R7 starting now. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to fade up, like, weirdly, because no other program does that shit. And then the lightbox is going to open. Now, lightbox is just filled with a lot of pre-made stuff to help get you started, and examples to show you like what's going on in the program, models you can open, all this shit. But we're not going to worry about that. You're just going to want to click lightbox, which is this little box. If you need it back, you can click on this. There's also a tool over here. Either way, you're not worrying about that right now. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to click, and you're going to see that, what the fuck is this? What is this? What is this bullshit? And then you're going to be like, all right, well, this weird S is like poking out at me, so I'm going to click on this. Oh, okay, I see some shapes. Let's just draw out a sphere. Okay, awesome. Wait a minute. What the fuck? What the fuck? Like, what? Like, I can't. Fuck this bullshit. Fuck this program. Okay, so after you calm down a little bit and, you get your head straight and you're ready to give it a go again, the first thing that you gotta do is not worry about this bullshit. Any of this bullshit. The only thing you gotta worry about right now is this little red buddy right here, the Z sphere. This is what you're gonna start on. So you can click and drag, and it's kind of weird. You hold Shift and it snaps, and then there you go. Now, before you do anything, before you touch anything, now you'll see that Edit is not grayed out anymore. The quick key is T, but we're just going to not do any quick keys because that's bullshit right now. We're just going to click Edit. And now you see that you have control over everything. Now, you can drag a part of this out. This is all still looking pretty weird, but say we're doing a monster with horns, right? So you're not going to do that yet. You're going to Control Z. Now you're going to hit X, and you're going to see that you have two little bitty dots. And now if you click, you'll see that it's completely symmetrical on both sides. And now that all of these aren't grayed out as well, you have Move, Scale, Rotate. This is all really basic. You can move it, you can scale it, and you can rotate it. Perfect. And right now, we're just going to go to Move. Now, here's the first quick key to keep in mind, which is A. Now, A shows you what your mesh is looking like. You're going to want to keep it on Draw instead of Move. And A is going to show you like what you're working with, essentially, geometry-wise. So if we come out here to the side now, in order to move it around, whatever you have selected will be the center. And wherever you just click and rotate with your mouse without any other buttons, you're going to be able to move around. Now, if you want to just move laterally, this is going to be hold Alt, click anywhere but on the model, and then move around. To rotate, you just click anywhere and rotate, and wherever you have selected will be the pivot point. So move around, and then to move in and out, you have to hold Alt, you click, and then you let go of Alt, and then you can move up and down, which will scale in and out. Now, that's already really complicated, right? You hold Alt, you click, you let go of Alt, you scale in and out. Like, pretty soon, like, navigating around will become second nature, so I wouldn't worry too much about it right now. What we're going to worry about right now is just adding things to this model. And anywhere you click, it's going to add a new kind of bubble. So we're going to click out a bubble, we're going to turn to the side, and we're going to say this is our monster from the side. That's going to be the snout. And then on the back, we're going to have a neck. And then we're going to move, drag it out. Now here's a cool trick. Anywhere you click inside this line will add another thing. So you click here, and now when you start moving stuff around, you can see that we've got a monster with a pretty cool little bitty head. And then you just continue down this line of logic until you get something that looks pretty cool, or at least as far along as you're hoping to get at this point. We're not going to worry about anything else. So there's our monster with its big antler horns. You're going to hit A, and you're going to see, okay, this is the mesh that I'm going to be looking at right here. So say this is what you're happy with, right? We're hitting A, you can see that here are your Z-spheres, which are all fine and good. You hit A, you come back. Now you can continue down this line. You can continue to add more stuff to make the objects like a little bit more rounded. You can do this as much as you possibly can to really, really work out the silhouette of your model. We're not worrying about any details at this point. Right now, we're just trying to get this guy looking close to what his overall shape is going to be. And you can continue to do this as much as you want. If you need to remove any Z-spheres, you can just hold Alt, and then a little bitty minus will pop up, and you just select it, and it goes away. That's all you have to do. You hold Alt, little minus on this little bitty thing, that one's selected, click it, goes away. Adding is just the draw button, and you'll be able to add them anywhere you want, just so you know. But say we're really happy with this. Say we're like, this is a good outline. This is what I want to start working with. You can hit A, and what a lot of people will do is they'll just start doing this shit, right? They're going to be like, all right, yeah, I'm doing it, yay. But you know, like you'll notice that there aren't really enough polygons. Like you can't do a whole lot with this. And this is when you're going to have to get into these menus. But before you do any of that, I recommend going to the user interface layout, which are these two buttons right here. You can cycle through these, and there's a whole bunch of them depending on what you know and how you like the program. I'm going to say that this one right here, with a nice selection of the most important brushes along the bottom, is my favorite because all the options that you need to work with are like right here. Now you can click on one of these guys and you'll see, oh my God, now shit's getting intense. But you don't need to worry about any of that. All you need to worry about are, here are my brushes, here's my model, and when you start moving around, you'll notice that the other red dot is right there, symmetrical to the other side, and anywhere you paint, it's going to be perfectly symmetrical. But again, we have a problem. We don't have enough polygons, right? So one way to go about this is to go to geometry, and then you're like, oh shit, I can't go to a higher res. I can't like increase the resolution. What you have to do is make this a polymesh 3D, which is whenever you hit A, the Z-spheres are going to be gone. So this is going to be gone forever when you move to this next step. So keep that in mind. So we're going to go to here. We're going to hit make polymesh, and now when you hit A, nothing happens. Nothing happens at all. You are now stuck here, and it automatically deactivates symmetry, so keep that in mind too. So you're going to hit X, symmetry's back on. Okay, so now the next step is geometry. Like you don't have enough polygons here to do anything with, so you go to geometry, and you notice that all this stuff is different now from when it looked like from when it was Z-spheres. When you look at Z-spheres, it looks like this. When you look at your polymesh, it looks like this. So the first thing you need to do is divide this bad boy, and you'll already see you've got a ton more to work with. And you can divide this a lot of times. Generally, the best way to work is to slowly build up by layers. So you would divide it once, and then you'd come in with like the standard tool. Any one of these will work. They pretty much show you a picture and like identify standard, move, smooth. At this point, we'll divide it twice. We'll take a look at it. We have a lot more polygons to work with, and we're going to start sculpting on this bad boy. So on to the next step. All right, so here we are. We have our guy. He's all subdivided out. His symmetry is activated. Everything looks really good. We cannot return to polyspheres no matter how hard we try, and we're ready to start sculpting on our crazy monster guy. So the brushes that I think are most important, clearly, the standard brush is really important. Move is really important. Flatten, you don't have to worry about too much. Smooth is super important, but you're going to notice right off the bat, when you click smooth, you get this fucking warning, right? Because smooth is not something that you really select on. Smooth is something that is forever going to be bound to the shift key. And when you hit shift over your model, you're going to notice that it turns blue. And anytime you do that, it's going to smooth out a little bit any area that you have selected. The first thing that you need to know before you get into any of this is how to make this little reticule bigger. Now, your options are up here, right? You can scale these around, scale the focal shift, mess around with all this crap. Here's the intensity. RGB is for texturing, you know, so don't worry about any of this stuff just yet. But really, you're talking the brackets, bracket up, bracket to the right, bracket to the left. You can hold them down. It'll scale in and out. This is the quick key on how to do it. So if you're looking to smooth a really big area, make it really big, hold shift, smooth, and it's going to smooth all this guy out like hardcore, right? Like, you know, this is how you get like really big areas, and you're just like, I want the neck to be kind of like this and blah, 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 blah. So not going to worry about any of that, but that's how you smooth. Forever on the shift key, don't worry about clicking it. But if you want to use the other ones, here we go. So we're going to start with the standard brush. We're going to get up on our model. And another navigational tip is whenever you click somewhere, that's going to be where your camera orbits around, right? So you're orbiting the model wherever you click. Also, if you find yourself like this and you can't like, you know, like stuff's happening and you kind of panic because you've scaled in too much, if you just hit F, it'll snap it back to full screen. No problem. So right now, just off the bat, what we're going to do is we're going to start sculpting on this guy. So we're going to lower the intensity because you don't want to go crazy. You're going to go to your standard brush, and you're just going to start slowly building more on your character. You're going to build and build and build. And this is sort of like the basics, right? Like you just scale up and you build a little bit, and then you scale down and you build a little bit. You're going to puff out the back of the head, smooth it down, puff it out. If you realize that it's going kind of crazy on you, like it's moving too much, just lower the intensity until it starts to feel right. Additionally, you get the move tool, which is right here. You scale it up, and you can really like move this guy around, doing all kinds of craziness. Bring it like that, bring it like that, and now you can like move big parts of him around. You really just have to kind of get a feel for it for the most part. Like a lot of this stuff isn't going to feel natural or right in the beginning. You're just going to kind of have to like, you know, do the best you can, because using this program does feel pretty weird in the beginning. The genius of it kind of comes into play a lot later on when it starts becoming a lot more second nature to you, when, you know, a lot of the weirdness with how the program is kind of structured and how different it is from other stuff kind of like melts away a little bit. And then it's going to start feeling a lot more natural. And essentially, like, this is it. Like, for the most part, like, there are, of course, much more detailed ways to get about it. You probably watch tons of tutorials on how, like, nutty things get with this program, or how, like, incredibly detailed. But pretty much, like, this is how you can make cool shit. Now, it's not looking like a whole lot right now, trust me. But when you start getting into stuff like, you know, here's the magnify tool, and you can just like pump stuff up a little bit and, you know, keep going like this and like really refine up the jawline and make the lobes in the back of the head and like fill this stuff out. And then you're just like, okay, you know, it's like it's all looking pretty good. But, you know, like there's not enough polygon. Like you can try to get in here and like make an eyeball, right? So you come in here. So holding Alt at any time will invert whatever brush you're using, generally, for the most part. So if you take this brush right here, standard, and you jack up the intensity and you make a stroke, awesome, great. But say you want it to go in. So of course you hold Alt, a little bitty minus pops up, and it punches it in as opposed to popping it out. Like Alt. Pretty much everything kind of does it that way. And then you smooth it out. So one brush that I really like to use at this stage is the clay brush. One, because it builds up really nice, like kind of like actual clay a little bit. A lot of these are made to emulate clay and how clay actually works. It will be really tricky in the beginning. Like you have to get the intensity just right and kind of like really play with it. And always keep in mind like your silhouettes, essentially. Just make sure that your silhouette isn't like getting away from you, that none of this stuff is going too crazy. You'll notice that the polygon lines are like really kind of jacked up at this point, but they're kind of supposed to be because we're going to take this as far as we want to take it, and then we're going to have to divide again. Eventually what will happen though, just as foreshadowing, is that the poly layout of this character is not very well done. You see that there's not a lot of detail right here around the eyes where there needs to be. There's probably too many polygons here in the tip where there shouldn't be, where you don't need a whole lot. So there's a way to get around that. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But right now, we're kind of in freeform sculpt mode. You divide a little bit, you know, and then you kind of come in here, grab a brush that feels right, punch an eyeball in, you know, grab that clay tool, start with something really, really kind of low, build up some brows, you know, kind of like make a nose for your little animal, you know, and then you're just going to keep doing this. Like there's no real secret. The secret is only practice to this program. Like, it's going to feel foreign, it's going to feel weird in the beginning, stuff isn't going to really look good, but the more you mess with it, the better it's going to get. Here's another really important one that you may want instead of like Z project is you hit. So a trick about navigating all of this nonsense is any letter that you pick off of the keyboard will automatically search for stuff. So there's one great slicing tool that I use, and it's called, you hit D, it's called Damn Standard. And this guy will cut. Like, it's really good for adding stuff like mouths, you know. No program is perfect. Adding stuff like a mouth, you know, it'll slice the polygons kind of like in and like look really good. Right now, there's really not enough polygons around the eyeball, so it's going to be really hard to kind of like get that to look very good. But, you know, you kind of do your best to like work it in. You know, and then before you know it, like it's going to start to look like a thing, like honestly. And then as long as you're just freeballing this shit and not working off of like an image that you're kind of married to or anything, you can kind of like move this stuff around, you know, kind of like do what you can to just like make it look the way you want. Really, really, really play with stuff, you know, like this is a fun program when it gets down to it. Like you can do a lot with it. It's incredibly powerful, but this is just how to get the ball rolling 101 in ZBrush. And at this point, we're already using a ton of tools. We're navigating around, holding Alt, moving it around, orbiting around objects, increasing the subdivision, getting stuff looking really good. We're going to divide one more time. You can see we're already at 5. Now, if you want to know how many polygons are in your thing total, if your computer's like starting to slow down, you can click Subtool, and when you hover over it, it'll tell you polys 694,000. Now, this is really an efficient mesh. We're not going to be sticking with that in any sort of manner. But right now, doesn't matter a whole lot because we're just kind of getting the ball rolling on this guy. And say like, all right, we're looking really good. Everything's feeling really nice. Now on to the next step. How do we kind of like now that we're happy with things a little bit, how do we refine the mesh in a way that like really organically spreads the polys across the shape of this creature so we can continue to sculpt in a really efficient manner. So here's a neat little tip on how to kind of like restructure the model. So you notice here when you click and drag the thing around, you can see that the polygons kind of change, right? Well, this is it switching it kind of dynamically to a lower resolution to make navigation like really easy. But you can already see right here where this thing needs polygons. Around its face and its eyes and its mouth, there aren't a whole lot, but on the tip of that horn, there's like a ton. And you don't need that many polygons there. So this is a quick way early on to kind of tell the polygons where to go, essentially, like where you need them to be the most for this thing to be really efficient. It's pretty easy. All you got to do is with your subtool open right here, you're going to duplicate this guy, hide the other one. So now you just got the one, right? They're right on top of each other, so you won't even be able to see. But as long as you just have one selected and the other one hidden, it's totally fine. This little black bar lets you know when you have something selected. So what you're going to do is you're going to come down here, you're going to go to geometry, and down in geometry, you're going to see a thing called ZRemesher, right? Now, ZRemesher basically completely changes the entire mesh of this guy. It's going to lower the resolution of it way down. This is why we duplicated it. We want a high res and a low res. So underneath geometry and there's ZRemesher, this button right here, if you just click Control over anything inside ZBrush, this is the amazing thing about it. It's going to tell you a ton of information about it. So this slider's value is in the thousands, thus a value of 5 would result in a target retopology of 5,000 polygons. And if you remember, our guy right now is sitting at like 694,000 total polys, like fuck it, that's the two things together. So, but 694,000, way too many at this point because we're at subdivision level 5, trying to get enough into these eyes for us to like sculpt around. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave it at 5, keep everything the same. Right here at adapt, this means it's going to adapt the polys like as best as it could going around. Where it's going to hit ZRemesh. It's going to take a second to process. Bam. Now look at this guy, right? Already you can see that the flow around the eyes is a whole lot better. The flow around the mouth is a whole lot better when it comes to polyflow. Like it really figured this thing out, man. This little aspect of ZBrush is getting better with every iteration. So what we can do now is we can just divide them and divide them and divide them. And you'll see here when we move them around, like things are really nice and even. If we go back to our old guy and move them around, you can see stuff is really messed up. But say we had like a ton of detail in this one that didn't carry over to this one, and clearly a lot of it didn't. What you can do to transfer the detail from the inefficient one to the detailed one is turn this guy on, and I'm going to tell you what, like I'm going to put a little bit more detail in this guy. So I'll take my dim standard and I'll just put some rakes like in his neck right here. Something that's going to really stand out. And I want that detailed now to be transferred over to this guy because he doesn't have any of that stuff. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn him on, turn them both on, have the one selected that you want the detail to be transferred to, and then you're going to go down to project and you're going to hit project all. And of course, it's going to take a second to process, but then bam. See, they kind of shrink wrapped to one another. So when you hide the bottom one and you look at your top one and you're like, holy crap, all that little stuff came over. And this is the more refined mesh. So even here, you look at these eyebrows and you're like, holy crap, like this stuff looks really bad. And that's only because it was really bad on the previous one. On the new one, your polys are a whole lot better. So if you just smooth this stuff, lightly smooth it, so we'll turn this down, smooth it out, you'll see that it just transferred over all the bad shit that you didn't want, but it's actually a much more efficient mesh. Much, much more efficient. Stuff is really starting to look, easier to work with, essentially. And that's a process that I like to repeat over and over again, honestly, as I'm like freeform sculpting. Now, this is just me when I'm like making shit up off the top of my head. Like I'm not really worried about following anything. This is just me being creative, essentially. So you'll come into here, and now that this is all like a whole lot more kind of like detailed, you have much more to work with, essentially. you can start poking around with like all these things and really, really, really start bringing this together, essentially. Now, the next little trick is, say you're like making these eyes, but you don't have a ball in here. Now, what a lot of people will try to do is they'll try to use like the magnify tool and they'll kind of like pooch something out like this. Doesn't look too bad, but it looks kind of weird. And when you start sculpting on this thing, you'll notice that a lot can go wrong. Like it'll just start deforming the eyeball and none of it really works. So we're going to put some balls in here. And the way that we do that is, well, now we can delete our old mesh, not have to worry about it. So we have our new one here. And you see even here, like I was like sculpting on this and it looked fine from this angle, but for here, it's like, it's all sunk in. Weird. That's not like good. That's not going to work. You know, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to fix that shit, and it's just going to be a big pain in the ass. So we're going to put some balls in there so we really know what we're working with. And the easiest way to do it is to come into your subtool menu. You're going to hit Append, and then you're just going to add a sphere 3D. Bam. Right? There's your sphere. It's kind of messed up, but there's your sphere. Now, how do you get it aligned into the eyeball, right? Well, there's two ways to do it. One, you can use the move, scale, rotate. So if you use move, you have to click on the object and drag across. And this is a weird way to control anything, but you know, once it's set up, you can move from any of these axes, right? You can move it, it'll squash it, it'll slice it, it'll do all kinds of weird shit. This is a whole thing into itself to kind of get like your brain around. Like you have to reset it constantly. When you do the scale, like you have to like kind of bring it in a little bit, and it'll do it from either end, and it can kind of like make it elongated. I mean, it's such a weird thing. You really have to get used to like working with moving objects around this way. The alternate way is to go down to the deformation panel, and this right here is all just a bunch of sliders. So like offset, you know, and tells you which way. And right here you have X, Y, and Z, super tiny. So depending on what direction you want to move it in, you know, like it's kind of, you can do it this way. It's kind of troublesome, but I mean, just take the time to kind of work with this method and try to figure it out as best you can, you know, because eventually you'll be able to get it lined up. You just move it in here, move to the side, kind of reset everything again. It's a super pain in the ass. I don't really like it. I wish it was much more sort of like, you know, the way other 3D packages have stuff kind of set up, but eventually you can get that eyeball in there. Now this is going to be a completely separate object, and now that it is a separate object, you won't have to worry about drawing on it at all, because in order to draw on it, you have to have the subtool selected. So I can draw on it right now. I can do all kinds of stuff to it. But the second I have the head selected, like I can't affect it at all, right? So now this is how you get objects like really close to each other and to really look like they're intersecting. So I can start moving like this stuff around to where it hugs this eyeball and looks really, really nice. Or at least much nicer than it would any other kind of way. Like you'd spend forever sculpting on this thing trying to figure this out any way but this, which is a super pain. Which now leads you to the next question. So you've got an eyeball here, but you don't have an eyeball here. So how do you get the eyeball like transferred over? Well, one, you could do the whole process again and try to line it up, but there's a really easy method. You have your eye selected, you go to Z plugin, you go to Subtool Master, you hit Mirror, merge into one subtool. So this is going to make both eyes into one object. You want it on the x-axis, which gives you a little picture. It's going to go across. You hit OK, and it just kind of knows. Bam. So now you got two eyeballs. Two eyeballs in your little demon head. Your little demon deer monster thing. And the races are off, my friends. Like, this is pretty much how I go about sculpting almost anything. Now, we can get into more of what these tools do, but they're all really obvious by name. Pinch will pinch stuff together and really kind of like, this is better for like, you know, hard surface stuff. You can like really get creases on things, make it look really nice. You know, you can bring entire gaps together like this. You know, I like pinch a whole lot. Pinch really gives like a cut kind of sensibility to a lot of objects. You know, you can really kind of like refine and do all kinds of neat stuff. But essentially, like, this is the secret. Like, this is how you make things. Now, this is all really, really simple, and this is just me dicking around a little bit and mostly trying to teach everyone stuff. But a lot of this stuff is really applicable to almost every sort of scenario within the world of ZBrush. All of it's going to fall under this realm. Like, you're going to mess around with the intensity. You're going to come in and you're going to say, I need nostrils. So then you're going to punch some nostrils in, and then you're going to puff the edge a little bit, smooth it. Cool. Now you got nostrils, right? And it just goes deeper and deeper and deeper from there. And that's going to be all for lesson 1. But just remember the retopologizing, how to move stuff around, how to add details, how to add different objects and shapes, and to be able to sculpt on them independently. All of that, I mean, this is just brain dead basics 101, how to make things. I haven't left anything out. It's that easy. We've got good polygonal distribution on our model, more or less so far, but nothing's like super crazy. And also, if you look at our total polygons, right now at 4 subdivisions, we're at 600,000, which is really close to what we were before, but we were able to do so much more with it than we were before. So that's going to be it for this first round of learning stuff. Of course, this is an infinite well. Haven't touched texturing, displacement maps. Oh my God, this program is so deep, it's sickening. And a lot of it's really, really tricky. But this right here will get you going just making shit. Making shit you can actually use, because anything that you can make in here can be refined and tweaked and treated until it's in a usable form, as long as it has like basics, as long as you don't have like 2 million polygons in the tip of this thing, because you had to subdivide this thing 15 times and now it's crashing your computer and like all kinds of stuff. Like, this is just getting set up, sculpting 101, as simple as it gets. And I'm going to make more lessons in the future, kind of going over the more detailed aspects of this program. But this is for the super, super idiots beginner guide. And hopefully you can make some really cool stuff using this method. So I'll be back with more tutorials in the future, kind of like covering different aspects. Also, I'm going to do like 3D Studio Max and, you know, After Effects and a whole bunch of other shit that I've learned throughout the years. But this is just going to be the start of a whole lot of shit that's coming to this channel. And hopefully, you know, you'll get some use out of it and make some cool shit based on all the stuff I teach you. All right, well, don't get discouraged and stick with it, and I'll see you soon. Bye. So, quick little thing that I actually forgot on all this bullshit is how weird it is to save things inside ZBrush. Just so you know, like, it's not under document. Like, there's all this... Fuck this shit. All right, you know, like, how do you save this model right here is you got to go to Save As right here. So you just hit Save As. It's going to have the name that's assigned to it that's like right here. Here you can change it to anything. I'll just save it to my desktop. And I'm going to go Demon Deer Head Bullshit _01. Fine. Save. And save often too. So now what you're going to see when you want to load this thing back up again is close the program. It's going to ask you to save whether you did or not. Just hit no. Load the program back up. Load tool on your desktop. Demon Deer Head Bullshit _01. Open. Click. Drag it out. Hold Shift. Let go. And again, like in the beginning, because it's a trap, hit Edit before you touch anything. And now you got your model back in the program, ready to go. Looking bad, but you know, it's just a start ultimately. Get an object back into the scene. Additionally, too, if I wanted to show you another thing, say, how do you get something that you've already made into this program? Here's a free model, but I have it inside 3D Studio Max right now. So you're gonna grab this guy, you're gonna export selected, or else it'll bring everything in the scene in. Go to desktop. You want OBJ for an object file. Here you're gonna go man stuffs, save it. Now, all this is a lot of complicated bullshit that you don't need to worry about because it has a preset right here in this big long list for ZBrush. Export. Bunch of nonsense. Forget this program. Come back into ZBrush. Come to another empty slot. Just don't have it selected on him. And then you're going to go import man stuffs, obj, open, boop, and then there's your guy. And remember, symmetry is not on by default, so you're going to want to hit X. And then you can do whatever. Give him big boobies. Big old boobies. Yeah. That's the stuff. Also, there's your demon head right there. So, you don't have to worry about it too much. And remember, if you want to add big booby guy into demon head, then you just hit append, grab the guy, and there he is. Bam. I bet he's like super huge. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, there's my demon head right there. Oh. Yeah, that's another thing too, is ZBrush by default makes stuff like really, really tiny. So this came out of Max, this came out of ZBrush, I don't know, it's a weird thing. But that's just another one of those fucking weird things that you gotta worry about. And then you can just delete this guy. Mainly, I believe it's because if I hit grid right here inside of 3D Studio Max, you can see that this guy is like super giant and also way off to the left from where like my demon head is. So it actually made a whole lot of sense. But, you know, just more stuff you got to worry about. Here's your demon head. There's a bunch of tricks. Get to sculpting. Have fun. See you later.